Hello and welcome. There's new theme music for the gutter.
I enjoyed it.
It's sort of breaking news theme music for the gutter. You like it, John Gibbons?
It's building up tension, which we are, because the...
Is that tension music? You're a musician. What would you go for as the theme music for the gutter?
Exactly what you
Exactly what you just done. Stu, right? A bit more Jaws for you? Dun, dun,
no,
dun, dun.
I like the cliffhanger edge to it. Yeah.
I mean, there's only 8 days left, so it needs to be kind of like, fairly intense.
It needs a bit of momentum. What do you think, Josh? What would you go? Something a bit more poppy or something a bit more old school?
I think what you've done there is absolutely perfect, Rob. I even want you to just do that. We'll add nothing to it. No, nothing on the vocals, no auto-tune.
News.
Spot
on. Well, the news is that Liverpool are selling mofos all over the show. Buying no one, absolutely not. But we're not very good at buying, lads. But we are very good at getting rid of them. And I think you can tell Mickey Edwards is back because we're getting good prices for these lads. As we begin to record, the news has come out, well, it sort of broke overnight, that Brentford have agreed a deal in principle with Liverpool to sign defender Sepp Vandenberg for 25 million plus 5 million in add-ons. Bobby Clark has sent the fans a fond farewell message. His deal apparently is worth 10 million and he's going to Leipzig. Thanks for the message, Bobby, and the memories.
What a legend.
Yeah. We will never forget you for the League Cup final and the goal you scored against Luton, or was it Southampton
Forest,
in the League Cup? No, it wasn't Forest.
He scored in the league game against Forest, didn't he?
No,
I think of someone else.
No, it's someone else, the other fella. He scored against Southampton in the League Cup, I reckon. But anyway, enough Bobby Clark chat. We will follow your career fondly, Bobby. But I want to start by chatting about Sepp Vandenberg, who it turns out, Stu, right, is really good. If we thought he was quite good in pre-season, this transfer fee tells us that he's actually really good. Because a deal worth 30 million, you don't pay that for bums who are going to play for Premier League clubs, right? We heard that Liverpool were buying somebody from the Bundesliga we'd only heard of last week for 30 million as a defender. We'd be sitting around this morning going, yeah, that's solid, that's good. Yeah, we needed a lad in, especially as we might be losing Joe Gomez. I'm glad we've got him in. Well, it turns out we had him, and we thought it was okay to sell him. Now, I'm not being critical of the club for that. The fee seems good. But it's got to suggest something. Surely somewhere we're looking at buying a footballer.
Yeah, it's some deal, that, isn't it?
Yeah.
It sounds amazing, considering like he was himself arguing over that he shouldn't be priced at, I think, north of 10 million only a few weeks ago.
Yeah, he was. He was complaining.
Yeah.
Well, I've just realised as you're talking, I owe you an apology, Stu.
You do? I don't think it's in the locker, that, mate. Don't think I let that go.
I like a gutter apology.
I didn't say I was going to give him one. I just said let it be noted that I owe him one. Because you were on Michael Edwards' side, I was on Van der Berg's. I never miss an award-winning gutter, obviously, Rob. So I was out walking the dog. I haven't even got one. I just grabbed.
Is that a metaphor? Walking the dog. Wink, wink.
I borrowed them just to give you an excuse to listen to the award-winning gutter. And Stu was saying, listen, he needs to get on with it. We decide the price. And I was scoffing to the dog. I was like, have you heard this pick?
I'd scoffed on a show.
Yeah. So I waited,
and then John entered my little book.
I'm in Paddy Fitz's as well, but for a different Jamaica style reason. But yeah, it turns out you and Michael Edwards are right. So there you go.
Vendettas.
Yeah, but you know what was interesting though? I mean, I've read about half of what's his name, Liverpool's former
Ian Graham.
I've read about half of his book on holiday.
How to sell mugs for loads.
Yeah,
that's his next one.
And it was interesting actually between his book and also some interviews. And I actually one of his interviews over the last few days, it might have been the one with Neil yesterday. He mentions an admiration for Brentford.
Yes,
and Brighton,
he does, yes.
And how, their transfers...
And Ben Johnson, apparently.
Ben Johnson, yeah, that was really quite something. But yeah, he mentions an admiration for Brentford and their statistical approach to transfers. So it does make you think that there was something there, and there was something there in the first place in Liverpool going for him so long ago. The other team that's obviously come very close and also had a bid accepted is Leverkusen, who've just obviously won everything in Germany.
Best team in Germany. And again, so no mugs. And you'd think that, and obviously he played in Germany last year. Yeah, Mainz, wasn't it?
So Yeah, it would seem like Liverpool knew what they were doing when they were saying he was a good player and he was worth a fair crack. But I don't think anyone anticipated us getting best part of 30 million, including add-ons for him. So yeah, absolutely made up with that. But it does leave the cupboard a little more bare at the back. So work has to be done.
It does leave it bare, John, doesn't it? And it also, to my mind, okay, I can joke about it. Suggests that Van den Berg is better than we thought. Although maybe he's better than we thought. But it also suggests to me that this market is not a deflationary one, as we considered earlier in the window, that, with PSR rules and clubs needing to keep their house in order, that prices might begin to fall for the first time, or at least stabilise. Doesn't feel like they're stabilising to me any day soon. It makes you wonder, what price Joe Gomez in the market now? What price are the lads we want to buy?
Yeah, it's gone from nothing happening to suddenly, I can't think of anyone who you think's got a good deal. Do you know what I mean? There's always a few every summer that you go, oh, they've done well to get him for that price. And maybe Fulham with Emil Smith-Rowe.
Onana went quite cheaply, didn't he? 35?
Well, on reflection, that was an early one, wasn't it? That was an early one. And so, but you speak to some Everton fans and they say he's crap. And so I think that will turn out to be a good buy. I think he'd be more suited to sort of Villa. That was an early one, and maybe that was the time to get like a decent deals because, like I say, the only one is Smith-Rowe, but he's had so long out that it's still sort of a gamble. Apart from that, I'm really struggling to think, many clubs who you think have got someone in, you're like, that's a good price. Obviously, some will end up surprising you. But right now, it's more the other way, isn't it? It's more like every day you're like, fucking hell, I can't believe they've got that for him. And then now you add Sepp van der Berg, who like Stu said, might end up actually going for over the asking price because Leverkusen are so keen to get him. I thought he was great in pre-season. I remember saying, on shows, in the summer in between slagging Stu off, saying like if we were using new signing and you saw this from him in pre-season, you'd be absolutely buzzing with it and you'd be made up. And so I think he to answer your question before, I think he probably is a better player than, because we've not seen him for ages, really, for years, and even then it was just one or two performances. He's obviously come on a lot, but they still feel like he's better sort of suited elsewhere. But it is one that where you think, well, what is Gomez worth then? Because and I half suspect Gomez might sort of end up staying now, but I think it is. But then it goes the other way in terms of who you buy in, and then I think what happens when the market's a little bit like this, I think what happens is those with release clauses who you were maybe a few weeks ago going, is he quite worth that? You're suddenly like, yeah, I'll bite your hand off. We'll bite their hand off, should I say, because, the likes of Inacio and people like that who have got these sort of release clauses, and Liverpool maybe were quibbling on it a few weeks ago where they weren't sure how many defenders they had. Now suddenly those prices look a lot more appealing.
Yeah, they do, and you think I'm going to muse out loud. It makes you think about the Zubimendi deal, and emotional as Sociedad were about wanting to keep the lad. And the fact they needed, they didn't want to lose too many midfielders, there's no doubt about that, those are factors. They also probably had it in their minds that if we can just talk him into staying, new contract, get that fucking release clause whacked up, because Zubimendi is like a top 8 central midfield player in Europe, number 6 in Europe. And Sepp van der Berg's worth 30 million in add-ons. Zubimendi's worth a fuckload more than 51 million without add-ons, He's arguably an £80 million player, and Sociedad are going, fuck, I don't know. Josh, the knock-on effect for Liverpool is we can rejoice in the achievements of Michael Edwards or Richard Hughes, probably predominantly on this occasion, in getting these decent fees in for Liverpool squad players, or even below the level of squad players. But it has a knock-on effect to who we're going to buy here. I will not give up on Anthony Gordon until 10:59 on deadline day. But you know what? What price Anthony Gordon this market? And I hope Newcastle aren't listening because I not just Anthony Gordon, but anyone who's, let's put it this way, there's a shopping list out there of players you go, no, they're big signings here. Not no risk, no one's no risk, but like a Caicedo was last year. I think Gordon's in that level this year. I don't know really many others are. You go, yeah, I think that price might be a lot nearer 100 million than people wanted to accept at the beginning of the window.
Yeah, I think it's a funny one with Gordon really, because I think he's probably not a position of need for Liverpool, and that need has decreased more and more as the sort of summer's gone. Like you've seen Diaz's sort of pre-season performances, and I would even argue his performance against Ipswich was that of a lad who I think looks like he's going to have a good season.
I mean, what's he worth?
Yeah, that's the thing.
If we do sell him,
because we were talking a couple of weeks ago about him maybe being worth 50 million to Barcelona. For a Sepp Vandenberg to be going for half that, I'd want so much more for Diaz. So I think I'm probably looking more at centre half now because as Stu said, we've lost another body there, and I don't think Vandenberg would have ever been like a sort of one of the lads who would actually be around at Liverpool. I think all those noises that he could be a genuine option for Liverpool this season were a bit more shop window tactics than anything else. I don't think he's got the sort of the skill set really to be a centre half at Liverpool. I think he's probably more suited to someone a bit lower down the table who's a bit more sort of clear kind of thing and beat a big man and use your physicality. I think at Liverpool he'd need to be able to be a bit more comfortable on the ball than I think he probably is. So
let me pause you one sec, Josh. I know you're mid-stream there, but let's cast our minds back a year to Liverpool come out of pre-season and Jarrell Quansah's done nicely, right? Liverpool decide he's good enough to have in the squad as an option, and I would argue that Jarrell Quansah, the one that hadn't yet proven himself, was not the player, or wouldn't have had the market value that Sepp Vandenberg has. But we're deeming this level player, whilst we're short of bodies in defence, arguably, is surplus to requirements. It's a leading question.
Yeah, it's like I think Nat Phillips is always a cautionary tale with this, because I think you can be tempted to keep a body around for the sake of keeping a body around when really we've now missed probably 2 windows of Nat Phillips being somewhere close to his peak value, and now he's worth absolute peanuts. Like there's no one who pay big money for Nat Phillips this summer because he's had a couple of failed loan moves. He's had one too many seasons at Liverpool, and suddenly his value is absolutely nothing. We've missed that boat to sell Nat Phillips for the fee we should have sold him for. So I think there is a bit of a thing where if you're Liverpool, there's somebody looking at it, and that, like I'd include Gomez in this, and I probably am in slight agreement with Gibbo that I think it's the time is ticking a little bit now, and if Liverpool can't get another centre half in, then I do absolutely want us to be keeping Joe Gomez. I'd quite like us to be keeping Joe Gomez even if we do get another centre half, because I think he's such a utility man across that back four. It can be so useful in any sort of injury crisis. But then again, I'm almost tripping myself up with my own thing there, because Gomez is peak value this summer. So do you want to sell him? There's been the Newcastle thing already, where Newcastle were basically willing to pay £45 million for him in this sort of weird swap deal situation with Gordon. So if he's worth £45 million this summer and you can get somebody else in, you probably should pull the trigger if you're Liverpool, really, because if you are a club who wants to be self-sufficient, if you keep Gomez for next season and he plays barely any minutes, but you've kept him around to be an extra body, he's going to be worth a lot less next summer. Or God forbid, if you keep him and he gets an injury this season, he's going to be worth far less next summer. So there is a bit of a thing here, I think, particularly with lads like Vandenberg, who've sort of not been a major part of the academy setup, but have been bought for the academy, bought for that sort of production line of they are either a Liverpool first team player or we make some money on them. You absolutely can't be turning down the kind of money that Brentford are paying us for him.
Yeah, I think the way sort of the cards are revealing themselves, Stu, is increasingly fascinating, but also nerve-shredding as fans as the window draws towards conclusion. I feel Liverpool have signposted with letting Vandenberg go and letting a player we now can surmise was of a decent level, and the fee does suggest it, and the suitors suggest it. So we've been prepared to let a player of his reasonably good level go. We've destabilised Joe Gomez to a large degree by signalling we were prepared to trade him, and he was pulled out of the squad with Ipswich because he was considering his future. So there's a scenario where those two are out the door. But I think if they are to go out the door, that's 2 defenders going out the door. The one coming in can no longer just be a squad level guy. This has to be a guy who costs dollar and has a reputation or a trajectory. This has got to be. We've got to be working on a big one, is what I'm saying. And I don't think this is just wishful thinking on my part.
No, I think you're right. I've got a sneaky suspicion that Liverpool have someone lined up, and perhaps they are clearing the decks for that person and bringing some money in, but perhaps fees have already been discussed. It's interesting that there's been a lot of talk about the Leverkusen lad Hincapie the last couple of days, and obviously the Sport in Lisbon lad Inacio. I mean, that's been a long conversation. It's been going on for
3 windows.
Yeah, but I don't see it for either of them, because I just think stylistically, tactically, they've just not played in the same way that Liverpool played. Liverpool have purposely not gone for managers who play 3 at the back this summer. The fact that Slot played 4 at the back and a system more akin to what we have, that was a telling factor. And again, just harking back to some of the stuff Ian Graham's spoken about really openly, is that Liverpool look very, very closely at the formations that lads are used to playing in. And when you look at the number of games that Hincapie and Inacio have got under their belt, yes, they come into the sweet spot of the number of games that they start to fall into Liverpool's eye line. But not in our system. Like, very little experience in a back four. So I think that they might be a bit of a smokescreen. And I think that the talk around, and I'm not saying, but the talk around Gay, the little bit of talk over Brandtwaite, that's come about, and even, you know, Colwell. Liverpool have had a long-standing interest in Colwell, and, you know, Richard Hughes has spoken earlier on in the window about being opportunistic, where you only have to look at what's going on at Chelsea right now. They're desperate to get lads out the door. He's not one of the lads they want to get out the door, but I don't think people are banging at the door to get the lads that they want out. Yeah. And also, you've also got a scenario at Everton where they've brought a few lads in. We know the financial situation at Everton is perilous. They've brought 1 or 2 lads in. I think they thought that they were going to have a little bit of a bidding war around Brandtwaite earlier on this summer, and it's not happened. They held firm about the price that they wanted from Man United for him, and then Man United just went elsewhere. And I think there's a little bit of the fact that that's come out over the last week, a little bit of rumours about. I think it's because a little bit Everton are left there wondering what to do next, and Liverpool again have had their eye a long time on Brandtwaite. He's left-sided, he's a big lad, he's good on the ball, he's got a decent amount of pace on him. So I think the lads who play more in a back four, even though they might seem like harder transfers to make, they might actually start. I wouldn't be surprised if Liverpool made a move for one of them over the last week.
Stay you with you on it, Stu. And I actually would say I agree with every single word you've said there. The only scenario in which I can see they'd retain an interest in an Hincapie or what's the other, Inacio, is because to varying degrees they can do bits at left back, and to varying degrees Slot has played with an inverted fullback at his times at Feyenoord. At times, Gert Schroeder, I think, is because of the right-hand-sided guy. He tucked in quite a bit from what I remember when reading about stuff and listening to Josh's interview with the Gert Schroeder man back earlier in the summer. So there is a possibility for me that there's a tactical option where you play an inverted left back, Inacio, who certainly can distribute the ball from deep. That's his main thing, apparently. I'm not so sure about it. Well, Hincapie's played about a quarter of his games in his career at left back. He's very much a left back option. So I could just about see that, and you go, well, okay, Trent or Conor Bradley, you push right up one side. You're virtually a winger some games, whereas the left-sided guy tucks in. Unless they had that in mind, I mean, is that a possibility?
I'd be surprised, simply because what you've said there. Hincapie's played a quarter of his career at left back, but he's played there for 3/4 of a career at centre half in a back three.
Yeah.
And if Liverpool are buying him to be primary, where do Liverpool see his primary position to be? Do they see his position primarily to be at left back, tucking in, or do they see his position to be as a centre-half option who can also do that? And if it's a centre-half option, then statistically the evidence isn't there to suggest that Liverpool would be hot on his tail. I'd be surprised. Saying all that, you know, generally there's no smoke without fire with Liverpool, and it was talked about last summer that Liverpool were potentially interested in him. So same with Inacio. So I can only give my view on this based on how Liverpool have gone about the business before, and a little bit of the insider talk coming out from Ian Graham. I would be more leaning towards someone who is proven in a system that we can play in. And when you look at lads who can also play, Colwell falls into this category as well. Colwell can play centre half primarily, but can also tuck in and from the left side, the left back position. It's not ideal for him, but he's done it. He can do it, and I would say that would probably be Liverpool's number one option if they could choose.
I agree. As I said, I agreed with Stu before, and I still agree with Stu, John. And going back to sort of the premise I was trying to establish at the beginning, that if we are have all but sold Vandenberg, Gomez is halfway out the door, it points to Liverpool making a big profile, not cheap defensive signing, then the name isn't going to be one beyond their imaginations. And I do wonder who that lad is. You do begin to think, they've got somebody they think it's worth jibbing Joe Gomez for, jibbing Sepp Vandenberg for. Could it be a Levi Colwell? Could it be a Branthwaite? Or is this just silly late transfer? I can't escape the logic that it feels that they feel more logical. They explain why Liverpool are behaving the way they are, I think, if it was one of them. And few others do.
It's hard, isn't it? Because you're trying to get in the mindset of people that you don't know, and in Richard Hughes' case, is very new, and also what's the motivation of what they're trying to do this summer. I think it is going to be really interesting the next sort of 10 days, because anything could happen. Anything could happen. We could end up with, 2 or 3 absolute belters, and then suddenly you're like, wow, anything's possible this year. They could do nothing, and I think it's going to be really interesting to see sort of what happens, and I think it's going to be really indicative of how they see next season, but also next summer. My concern, and I go all over the place on this, so this isn't any inside knowledge, but my concern is that they're really worried about these contracts. Well, they're almost resigned. And I think, for me, I think if they don't sign anyone and they sell everyone who they're talking about selling, I think it's with the eye on next summer, and they're thinking we need to spend a lot of money just to stand still. So if they're thinking that,
why wouldn't you do it now though? Why wouldn't you push buttons now? Why wait till then?
I think they want the time. To be honest with you, Rob, I think if you go all the way back to Richard Hughes saying opportunistic, I think it's a case of I don't think they feel like they've had enough time in position to plan and execute the transfers in the way that they want to. You hear a lot that big transfers are like a year in the making and stuff like that. And I think if there's someone who if there's someone they feel like is Zubimendi, they can get in now and he was there and they'll sort of go for it. If something sort of drops for them, like suddenly a player becomes available, maybe a Colwell, then I think they sort of would do it. But I think that. Again, you're trying to get in the mindset, but I think they think the squad's a lot better than what a lot of fans do.
But I follow your logic, right?
Yeah.
Right. But wouldn't you then be motivated to keep Sepp Vandenberg? I get Gomez is a different case because we tried to trade him, we've unsettled him. Yeah. He's at a cusp point in his career. Maybe you let Joe Gomez go, but didn't you go, tell you what, we could at least make Sepp wait round till January? But they've been so decisive with this one.
I think it goes back to what Josh is saying, which is maximising the value. I think they're looking at Sepp Vandenberg. They've set the price high for a reason, and I think they've gone, if we can get that, that's probably maybe the highest we'll ever get for him. Because if he sits around for a year, if we keep him and he's not playing, say there's no centre-half injuries, or say his stock goes down. So I think they're looking at Sepp Vandenberg. I think they're looking at Bobby Clark. And a couple of others, and thinking this might be the highest their stock ever is. This might be if we say to Bobby Clark, no, you're sort of staying around, and he doesn't play, then what's he worth next summer? Maybe 5 million. You might get a little bit more because the market is so unpredictable at the moment. But I think they're. My concern is that they're looking to build as much money as possible, because we need, if those 3 players go, I can't even bring myself to say the names, but we all know, because I'm that scared about it, but we all know who I mean. They're going to have to spend a lot of money next summer to stand still. To get to the point of the squad that we'll have, going into this summer, that we're all saying already needs players. And so my concern, if they don't buy anyone, that'll be indicated to me that they think at least 2, if not all 3 of them are off next summer, and we need to. So it's the idea of building this war chest to to replace them, next year, and it's building it up. And I think I get to point on whether you do it now, but I think they just want the time. I think they want the analysis. I think they want the data, and I think it's all. It's for them. It's always been about, and this is where we know Michael Edwards a little bit more. It's all about sort of maximising your value of your money, really. And so if they think they can sell a player for 20 million now, and it might be 12 next summer, they'll do it for sort of 20 now because they've got that money in. I think they back themselves to win eventually, and I think they back this squad right now to at worst come fourth. And so you think, well, it's risk reward. It's going back to this hedge fund mentality, really, of what you're sort of looking to do and what you're looking to do. And listen, this isn't me saying I would do that. I would love no more to. Maybe there's a league title available. We don't know. We don't know until we're into the season. Really, I'd love nothing more for the new coach to have all the tools at his disposal and more. I'd love nothing more to really go for it. I always want to go for it, and I'm conscious as well. You've put your ticket prices up next year and everything like that. So I think there's a duty to sort of go for it rather than go, we'll have a season where we sort of wait and see a little bit. But I think. I think it's going to be really indicative of a few things. I think the contract situation is a massive live thing, and I think what happens there. I'm not sure whether they're sure, whether they're having a look at it. Whether they're deciding. How long do we give for Virgil? Maybe they want some more sort of data there, really. But I just think that. It feels to me like they're trying to buy a little bit of time if they can, and they're maybe thinking, well, listen, we could spend 150 million and come second on players that we don't really want, like they're not top of our list, or we could not do that and come fourth. And what does it sort of, what's the big gain? I worry that's how they're looking at it a little bit.
From a supporter point of view, Josh, that's a bleak picture that John's painted. There's no doubt about it.
I also think to jump in, I also think they think the squad's better than what most fans do.
Yes, yeah. But I was just about. But the thing that supports your view more than anything, John, is there's only 8-9 days left of this window, aren't there? What date are we on today? I'm losing track of time.
22nd today.
So it's 22nd, and the window
just 30th.
So it's eight and a bit days left of the window. So. Because either they're shipping people out because they're about to ship people in is one option, right? As I've tried to talk myself into believing, or they're getting funds where they can find them. Just accumulate money with a view to this big overhaul next summer, which also suggests, as John's saying, is that we are losing 3 major players. But there's a series of contradictions up to a point in these scenarios, I think, because if they do think they're losing these 3 players, and they are therefore and harvesting for a war chest, they are to an extent putting this, not entirely out, throwing this season under a bus isn't fair, because as John says, they may believe the current squad's got mileage in it, but they're not optimising their chance of winning if they're taking this stance. And I'd argue if they think they can rebuild that. Even if they think they can build 300 million, to try and do that in one summer, because availability doesn't match budget, as we've seen, that doesn't feel that logical to me either. There's a series of paradoxes. I think the only certainties you have in football are in the here and now. You can plan for the future with younger players to a degree, and we might even talk about this bloody goalkeeper in a minute. But I don't know.
Your least favourite signing of all time.
Least favourite signing. You may become a hero, but for now, it's not him. It's not. It's not you, Marmad Rashford, whatever your name is. I'll come to you in a minute and learn your name. But Josh, do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I can. John's case is logical, convincing, and also compelling, given how close we are to the end of the window. But at the same time, it doesn't make fucking sense to me, and that's. Well, where do you land on this one?
Like I agree with you in that I think, like the way they should be looking at it is if they are truly worried about those 3 contracts going, then they should be front loading that now. Like the way that Liverpool has succession planned for a couple of years, and I would say like broadly succession planned pretty well as well, as to bring in someone who is of the level of or just shy of the level of the lad they're about to lose, and then the hope is that they sort of coach them up to that level. Now that's obviously come with varying degrees of success down the years, but we back this sort of this transfer group, if you will, to be able to pull something like that off. The problem is, and John says it's hard to get into sort of mindsets of people you don't know. We sort of do know the dealings of Michael Edwards. We know how patient he is. We know how sort of safe on the whole, I would argue, that Michael Edwards has been, and that's why he's clearly someone that FSG like, because they sort of like the idea of playing it safe and really balancing that risk and reward. I think that's the whole sort of thing behind Moneyball is that it's all low risk, high reward moves. Liverpool feel like they'd be going into another season where, if they truly are worried about the three leaving, and I feel like I'm similar to John now, and I don't want to say the names of the three, then they're trying to once again play the low risk, high reward game, and I would say that going into a season of the least stability you've had in the past, let's argue 10 years, because I would even argue this is less stability than it was under Rodgers, in the sense that like the ownership would just start to gather a bit of pace under Rodgers. Suarez had sort of left, but there was still a bit of hope and optimism around in players like Raheem Sterling and Daniel Sturridge, and even the back end of Steven Gerrard's career. Coutinho as well, yeah, exactly. There was enough there to make you feel like there was a sort of stable thing. The squad is obviously great now, and that's the thing that we keep being told by the new manager himself, and sort of all the sort of things you hear on the grapevines. Things is that this Liverpool setup do genuinely think this squad is brilliant, and I am in agreement. But once again, it comes back to it's brilliant while you have the three world class lads who are into the last year of their contract in it. What it looks like next summer would be a concern to me, and if it's a concern to them, I would rather they were going out and spending the money now to make sure that it's less of a concern by the time it arrives. Because one of the things that I don't want to see Liverpool sort of falling into again is us just being reactive rather than proactive. And I think that's like City, I would argue, are probably the most proactive club in the world, and that is always who we should be aspiring to match, whether we think we're going to finish third, fourth, even if we think there's a chance we finish outside the top four, we should be trying to match stride with City on a sort of a strategy basis, if not a actual sort of what it looks like financially basis. We should be being proactive, and that's the thing that sort of concerns me if they do have the concerns around the contracts, and I do, of course, as well.
Well, there's evidence in various directions for what shall now be known as the Gibbons theory, right? And I'm keen to stress before somebody clips you, unfortunately, John, and makes out that this is what you want to happen. This, of course, isn't what you want to happen. I think all fans want to win now, want to get.
We're not
players.
clipping that, by the way.
No. Well, didn't somebody clip me saying something about Salah, which I don't
probably, yeah.
Yeah, ratio of that motherfucker. Thanks to my fans out there for that. They know who they are. Well, there is a bit of evidence against the Gibbons theory here that's sort of breaking, in that Liverpool are pretty close to signing, apparently, the Georgian keeper Mamardashvili, right? Now, there's talk of this fee being up to 40 million and a loan back to Valencia. So that's quite a bit of an investment, and it's quite a bit of forward planning there by Liverpool. That's Liverpool looking down the line at Alisson not wanting to stay possibly or going on forever. If they've got that approach to that position, they've surely got to want to have that approach to the other three positions too. It might be a question whether they can do it. That's why I'm not entirely convinced by the Gibbons theory that they think wait till next summer and spend and build the money up, because I think they'd want to spend it now. I think if you want to replace Mo Salah, ideally you want it before Mo Salah. You want it before Mo Salah leaves. They might believe they have replaced Salah in a different kind of way already. Or if you want to replace Van Dijk. This is why I go back to the beginning of the show, full circle. I think they're going to buy someone big in defence, or at least die trying.
Yeah, and I am maybe naively far less worried about the contractual situation. Cut to me in November, and if we're still where we are, then I'll be a very different stew, and I'll be panicking. My head will be falling off all over the place. But at the moment, I fully expected there to be no news on the contract at this time, because I thought Liverpool's priorities would be the transfer market, moving lads out and bringing lads in. And I think the club are probably working very, very hard on that and exploring all possibilities. One of the things as well, I don't know if you've seen, but there's a lot of talk now with Chiesa, who Liverpool have been long interested in. Right-sided attacker as an alternative to Salah. There's a lot of talk about him potentially going to Barcelona for as little as 15 million. His contract's only got 1 year left. Juventus are rumoured to, be worried that they'll lose him on a free next year. And he's 26? So if you were that worried about Salah, you'd expect Liverpool to be all over that right now, because, a year or two ago, his value was north of 60 million. So when you're looking at, value options, Chiesa would be one that would be falling into the eye line right now. So
the only black mark on him is that injury record, and it's pretty bad.
Fair.
But I agree with you. There's
for 15 million.
What's wrong with being opportunistic?
And I think that was Euros as well. That was being spoken about. So, whether it's true or not, but it seemed to be coming from the Chiesa's agents was pushing it, and Juventus were open to the idea, from what I read. But I didn't expect Liverpool to be right now prioritising the contracts. I thought that they'd give the lads a little bit of space to settle in with the new manager. If things are no further on by November and Liverpool aren't pulling up any trees in the league and potentially outside the top four, then it's panic stations, and I'd be very worried. But as it stands right now, I'm confident at least 2 out of the 3 will stay. And I think, from Trent's point of view, I've just never really bought into the Real Madrid thing for him. I think it's a great negotiating position for him to be in, to be honest.
Yeah.
I think it's a great lever for him to lean on. Van Dijk seems very, very happy at the club. He's so proud. He made that open to be club captain. He looked made up at the Ipswich game when he came over to the fans, to be back. I think a lot of the talk that came out about his emotional interview right after Holland got knocked out of the Euros was I think it was misinterpreted. When he was talking about he was going to be thinking over what he does next, I actually think he was talking about whether to continue in international football at the age of him. I didn't really get the feeling that it was about what he was going to do next at club football.
It's also what every footballer does every summer. Like, he was basically saying, I'm going to go and do what literally every professional footballer does every summer, and we all went, oh my God, what?
Exactly. And I just think, the very fact that he had a year left, it just meant that everyone, made the assumptions that weren't exactly there, and it's a nice story for the papers to crack onto. So at this point, I'm not overly worried. Slot seems enamoured with all 3 players. He was talking about Salah at the weekend, saying that he thinks he's got years left based on his current performance level in training and in matches. So I'm not overly worried at this point, but I do think that Liverpool, regardless of even if all 3 stay, Liverpool do need to back up that defence. Liverpool, I think, do need another forward option, and Liverpool do need to continue to explore the number 6 option, because as well as Gravenberch played at the weekend, there's just not a big enough sample size to suggest that that's the end of that matter, and we can all rest easy on our defensive solidity from that midfield position.
Sorry, just one thing on the Mamardashvili thing. I wonder if Liverpool are planning there for losing 2 goalkeepers in the not so distant future, rather than just the one. I think, listen, even if it came down to Trent Alexander-Arnold has to leave next summer, I do believe Liverpool would obviously go out and get a right back to be sort of reactive to that situation. But I think they're pretty certain that Conor Bradley is the real deal.
He's not cover for Conor Bradley.
Exactly. He's not Trent level yet, or maybe we'll never get to Trent level. But Conor Bradley is a brilliant footballer. He's a very different style of football to Trent. He's a brilliant footballer. I think the Mamardashvili thing is them going, there's a very good chance Kelleher leaves in the next 12 months. There's a very good chance Alisson's gone in the next sort of 24 months. So maybe that's a little bit of succession planning for both of those things, because I don't think Yaros or anyone sort of below that is any guarantee, really.
All right, I'll finish, because we've got a relatively short amount of time today. I want to finish on the slightly odd rumour. What is an odd rumour? Arsenal have been very strongly linked to Adebola Lookman at Atalanta. Mad fee being talked about, 65 to 70 million euros. But our name's in the hat as well, John. Now, I don't really think there's any credibility in this one. He's 27. He scored quite a few goals for them in his last 2 seasons. He's certainly come alive as a footballer, although he flattered to deceive when he was younger, but he's come alive as a footballer, you could argue, in the last couple of years. But I did get to thinking, not that I would particularly could envisage Liverpool paying 65 to 70 million euros for Lookman, but the idea that Liverpool are above signing players over the age of 25, I find, whether that's true or not, I still find slightly odd. You know, as Stu suggests, Chiesa at 15 million, what is he? You know, okay, he's got to check it. He might be 25, 26, but with an injury record, is he such a bad option? Arsenal paid, well, they bought Trossard in for reasonable money. He's nearly 30, and they bought him in 18 months ago. He's been a successful signing for them, you know? Would it be the worst idea to bring a player in who's coming into his peak at 27, like Lookman, notwithstanding the fee?
Yeah, I think it is just a fee. I don't think they're sort of set against it, really. I think it's, you know, we talked before about, you know, the people who are in charge of football operations now and selling at the absolute peak. I think there for someone like Lookman, you'd be buying at the absolute peak, wouldn't you? It'd almost be like a brand new car. As soon as you get it off the forecourt, it's losing value.
For sure.
And that's what sort of he'd be doing. His stock's never going to be as high. He's brilliant in the Europa League final. Fair play. You know, it's a man of the match performance in maybe the biggest club game he'll ever play. And so you're on the sort of the back of that, really. I don't think he starts for us, and he probably wouldn't even be my first sub. And so you're thinking, well, you know, it is a lot of money, really. And so I don't think Trossard, they got it at a good price, didn't they, because of his contract situation, and he has done really well there, although it was interesting he didn't start at the weekend. But I think, you know, he finishes the season really strongly for Arsenal, and to be fair, looked a better player than I necessarily give him credit for. I think Brighton, sometimes when you take players out of Brighton, they don't look quite as strong, and apparently it's similar to Atalanta. I remember speaking to the Atalanta fan, he called it the manager's fool's gold, didn't he? This idea of, you know, they look great in this system and then they go elsewhere and they look half the player, and Atalanta are laughing their heads off at this big fee and they go and get someone else. I think, you know, that has to be sort of borne in mind a little bit. So I don't think they're necessarily be against it. I mean, it's you know, Edwards was there when they signed Thiago, and you know, that was, but again, they were, I think they were conscious of the price. So I think you're right to say, like, never say never generally, but I'd be very surprised if Lookman's like top of the list at the kind of price that they'd be wanting.
Okay, on that bombshell, I'm going to wrap it. We maybe need some sort of closing music now we've got them starting. I think, what do you think? A bit more lilting. Like sort of like
riding off into the sunset kind of thing.
Yeah, or like something like our tune from something that leaves you going out of the show feeling a bit reflective, a bit sad, a bit sentimental, wondering where we're all going with this and the meaning of life. Thanks, Josh. Thanks, Josh. John, thanks, Stu. We'll do this all again very, very soon.
Thursday, mate, whether you like it or not.
Yeah. You know.
No, Thursday, now Tuesday. What are days?
I don't even know who
what
I
are
am
days?
anymore, John. What
might be one on Saturday, lad, who knows? I've ruined this brilliant ending.